Hey, thanks for joining us here on 9 News Plus. I'm Chris Bianchi here with 9 News Sports Director Rod Mackey talking about the Denver Broncos, who had what I may call, perhaps, I've been a diehard Denver Broncos fan for a good 25 years at this point.
Are you 25?
I'm older than 25.
Oh, okay.
But as far as I can remember, going back...
You know, Scotty's like 17.
Is he? Oh, there he is. Hi, Scotty. On that note, I will say that was probably the most unconvincing Broncos win that I've seen in my 25 years.
It was weird. It was one of the weirdest games. Seriously. I mean, it was a win that felt like a loss.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's put it, had they lost that game, Chicken Little the sky would have seriously been falling. Because I had talked about it with you before. Their schedule early on is pretty easy on paper. At the end, they have some juggernauts. They've got to get these games wins early on. And had they lost to the Texans, who they were a double-digit favorite against, at home, with all the mistakes they made, it would have been brutal. So putting a positive spin on it is they made a whole bunch of mental errors. They've been penalized now 25 times in 2 games. At least they won. They made all those mistakes, all those blunders, and they still won. So that's a good way to look at it. The bad way to look at it is you try to pull that against 49ers, you ain't winning. So that's the thing. They've got to correct a whole bunch of mental things. You see the pieces in place. You see the potential. But no more of these mental errors. I mean, the crowd counting down the clock so they could get the playoff in time. It was one of the weirdest NFL games I've ever seen. And that's back-to-back games now that Nathaniel Hackett's just been roasted. You feel for the head coach. It's like, this is crazy. I mean, it's a 1-1 team, and it feels like they're 0-2. But they're not. They're 1-1. I guess that's the bottom line of the whole thing. At least they got the win. But I'm with you, Chris. That was a weird football game.
And you said it there about Nathaniel Hackett. I think that's the top takeaway here is those first 2 games. Yes, he's said also the right things, I think, after both games. He's taken accountability for it. But, I mean, those sorts of mistakes, those delay of game penalties, the home crowd having to, chant out the clock there. I mean, what's going on?
It's weird. And we didn't see it in the preseason. And so I know a lot of the things with the injuries, with the penalties, with the fact that the starters didn't play. A lot of people, I think you're going to see the starters in the preseason. But that's got nothing to do with this. The fact that it's taken so long to get plays in, that's got nothing to do with the starters not playing in the preseason. And we didn't see this in the preseason. So why is it happening now? And you talked about it. He talked on Monday about it. He talked on Wednesday about it. He has twice pointed the finger at himself, said that's on me, but it's on others as well. They've got to get it in faster. They've got to figure out a way to do that. And it's everybody. I know the head coach has fallen on the sword more than anyone, but it's everyone. They've got to figure it out. It's quarterback too. I mean, I don't think that would have ever happened with Peyton here.
Correct.
So they've got to get this fixed in a hurry because again, you can get away with this stuff barely against Texans. You won't get away with all these. I mean, 12 penalties in the first game and the 13 again. It's like, okay, you're supposed to get better, not worse. They got things they got to fix. They truly do. They should be happy they're 1-1. And you score in the red zone, they could be 2-0. I mean, that's the thing. All these mistakes, they're this close to being 0-2. They're this close to being 2-0 or 0-2. So I guess 1-1 makes sense. But let's fix these things in a hurry.
And speaking of things, perhaps need to be fixed a little bit. Of course, we got our $250 million quarterback here in Russell Wilson. First 3 quarters of the game, he doesn't look particularly impressive. I believe he was about 6 to 20 at one point.
Yeah.
Then he does turn it on in the fourth quarter, has that touchdown pass to Saubert. Tell us more about what you've seen from Russell Wilson over the first 2 games.
It's weird. I don't know if they're not, if the offense isn't, the system's not fitting, if they should do more of what he was doing in Seattle versus throwing more, because there was more getting it to the running backs. It was different, and it's like they can't figure out what they're trying to do. There was a play down in the red zone when I'm like, Russell could have run the ball in, and yet he still tried to throw the football. And it's like, why is he not running it? He was asked about that on Wednesday. Why aren't you running it? And he deflected about, well, you have a guy like Javonte and a guy like Melvin, they're doing so well. But that wasn't the question. Why aren't you running? You could have run it in. On that play, that was not a run call. That was a pass. But you could have run it in. It wasn't supposed to go to the running backs. It was supposed to be a pass. But you saw you could have run it in. Why are you not? So I'm hoping that again, it's new. It's 2 games in. There's so much new in this thing. But I hope they put it together because we're expecting big things from him, and that's an opportunity right there. I think don't force the pass. Run the ball more in the red zone. I know they're a little bit skittish after those 2 turnovers in Seattle from inside the 1, but they're running the ball really, really well. If it's working, don't force the pass. Russell doesn't need the numbers; he needs the wins. So if the pass isn't there, then keep running the football. If this run works, run it.
Well, I guess flipping things over to the injury side of things. Jerry Jeudy, obviously one of Russell Wilson's main target.
Yep.
He gets hurt in the, I believe, first half of that game, doesn't come back. PS2, Pat Surtain second, also injured. What do we know about them, and do you think they'll be available?
I don't know if they'll be available, but the good news is afterwards it sounded like Jerry would be better sooner than later, and Surtain might be out longer. Well, then it turns out both are okay. Both could be back. They're making it sound iffy for the San Francisco game, but it doesn't sound long-term with either of them, which is huge because, I mean, I'll be honest, Surtain is a much bigger. I mean, I know they're getting a little bit thinner at the wideout, but they just do have guys. Surtain is such a difference maker. He's not champ, but he does take that side of the ball away a little bit more, and he's gone up against the studs. Again, DK Metcalf is tremendous, and he got some catches, but he did really well. So that will hurt them. They need to get those guys back. And I know injuries are part of the game, and that's another thing that people brought up. There's a lot of injuries going on. Well, you got to kind of callous yourself up in the preseason a little bit, and some people are wondering if maybe if you played these guys more in the preseason, I know you risk injuries then, and you don't want to lose a guy in a meaningless game. At the same time, if these guys are used to tackling or used to getting hit, are they suffering some of those injuries? Now, hamstrings may be different, but there's kind of 2 chains of thought there. I really think next year's preseason is going to be different. I think we see the starters next season, some.
Well, let's look ahead a little bit. Let's look ahead to next week, though, and coming up here on Sunday, because the 49ers.
Wouldn't that be this week?
You should say that's right.
Wouldn't that be
this weekend. This weekend.
I know you speak all your different languages and stuff, but let's get the English one right? Because it would be this week, right? Is it?
It would be this week.
Although it is the weekend, yeah. So it's this week, yeah. So it's Sunday night on 9 News, San Francisco,
that's
Denver.
Right.
Quick
Sunday
plug.
Night Football.
Quick plug. 6:15 kickoff.
6:15 kickoff Sunday night. You got Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo for San Francisco coming into town. They're 1-1. Bit of a weird dynamic for them as well with that quarterback situation. What do we see from the 49ers?
Well, so Trey Lance is out. So he's done. Broken ankle, done for the season. Okay. I honestly would have rather faced Trey Lance than Jimmy
Really?
G. Yeah, I think Jimmy G presents a lot of problems. Lance can run the ball better. Garoppolo's been around longer. He's more of a veteran. Been there, done that. I think he's more of a challenge. I wouldn't be surprised if the Broncos would have preferred Trey Lance versus Jimmy G, but it is what it is. Garoppolo's coming in. They're injured too. Their running back's not playing, so they're coming in banged up as well. I think there's a whole lot of interest in seeing Kyle Shanahan. Mike talked to Mike Shanahan, and he's like, "Hey, we're against the Broncos this week. Blood is thicker than teams." So it's going to be the Shanahan-Hackett matchup. I'm really looking forward to seeing too. You just don't want on national TV to have another one of these blunders. Let's put it together. And if the Broncos play without all these mistakes, the Broncos win. But again, like I said, if they have any of these mental mistakes that they had against the Seahawks or against the Texans, you ain't beating the 49ers.
What do you think happens on Sunday?
I think they win. I think they put it together. I think that I don't think it's going to be that tough a fix. The penalties concern me more than getting the play calls in and stuff like that. The holds, the pass interferences, some of those type things. Granted, the penalties are not getting it in, delay games. Those will kill you too. I mean, the one on the McManus field goal, like you just took 3 points off the board. I think they put it together. I think they win. But again, the margin for error is teeny in this game. You've got to be playing at your best to beat the 49ers.
Smaller than against Seattle and Houston.
By far. I mean, Seattle got killed by 20 last week.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Seattle was what we thought they were. It was, as we talked about, it was their Super Bowl. They were so geared up for that game. Watch them free fall after this. They were just up for the Broncos, and the Broncos had a chance to put it away several times. Didn't do it. Seattle gets it done at the end. At the end, Denver ends up beating the Texans. So, even Steven will take it. Now let's play some football.
I guess a final question for you is, have you adjusted your expectations for the Broncos based on what we've seen from the first 2 games? Mm-hmm. Do you think they're a 10-7 team?
No, which is concerning because, like I said, the end of that schedule stuff. I really think I'm more around the 9-win area, which really puts them on the bubble to be the wild card team because we can see the AFC West is really, really good. I know the Raiders are 0-2. They choked one away against Arizona, and that's what people got to realize. The Broncos at least won. I mean, the Raiders were
point.
up big, and they choked and they lost. So at least the Broncos won. At least they're still in position to do that. And if you beat the 49ers, you're 2-1. That's still, that's still a strong start to the season. But I'm closer to the 9-win mark. This game's huge. It really is. And then after this, they go to Vegas to play the Raiders, which, lots of times these two teams split. So I just really think mentally as well as on the schedule, this is a big one for the Broncos. I'm still 9-10 back into the wild card, but the Chiefs look really, really good.
Buffalo.
Broncos ain't winning the Super Bowl. They ain't beating Buffalo. I mean, let's put that out there right now. I mean, they can get into the playoffs, but that's about as high as I think the bar gets. They're not a Buffalo Bill level. Even clicking on all cylinders, they're not Buffalo Bills level. But I think they're better. I just think they're not quite where we thought they would be at this point of the season.
So, well, hopefully we're proven wrong here, and the Broncos.
But again, after all this, we're talking about it like they lost. They did win the game.
They did win the game. Again, I'll say it again, that watching that game and it's full with my Broncos get up and everything, that was as you mentioned, a win that felt like a loss, to me at least. They did win, though. They did win. It was regular season. It counts. 9 News Sports Director Rod Mackey. Thanks for joining us here.